Everybody.
Starts. Yeah.
Awesome start. Oh, can I cut that? I can't. We're live. Welcome, everybody. This is Lunch Academy episode 15, the redo. Sorry, guys, we did actually film an original episode 15, but everything went south. I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah,
my lawyer said I can't talk about it.
Let's not talk about it.
But this is Sam here, as always, and as always, my co-host star of the show,
Hello.
Shade.
Hi, everyone.
And
we're here with Tom.
Yes.
Hello.
She took my line.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you introduce him. That's your part.
This is Tom.
Thanks. That was amazing. That's such an intro. Well worth the wait.
But Tom's one of our many Launch Academy alumni, and he has a little company called Sipley. Do you want to introduce it a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I am an alumni here. I had an awesome time when I was here. Sipley, so it is a coffee shop subscription service based around an app. And I curate, or we as Sipley, curate the best coffee shops in a city. And we're starting with Vancouver. And we put them all inside of an app, on a map, and then a list. And then as a user of that app, you get, first off, a really great list of coffee shops that are more or less guaranteed to be great. And then if you buy coffee at those coffee shops through my app, you save a little bit of money. And it kind of adds value to your buying process there.
Saving money and good coffee.
I had a great analogy the other day that seems to have started to catch on a bit, and it's kind of like a compass card for coffee. So you use that at a coffee shop and you get a little bit of a discount because you use the compass card.
Oh, and do you have money through the app to pay?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Interesting.
So all the transactions go through the app.
Oh.
And so, for example, you would get something like a $5 coffee for anywhere up to $1 off of it. So like maybe $4 for a certain type of drink.
Yeah, and if you drink a lot of coffee, that stuff adds up.
It really does. Yeah. We did a kind of a survey, and I'm thinking people are going to be $30, $40 a month. There are people out there who are like $400-$500 a month on coffee in coffee shops. Like I drink a lot, but not that much. That's pretty impressive.
God.
Do they buy for like entire nations at a time?
Is that?
Well, or how pricey are the coffees?
Maybe they buy coffees for other people. Like they have a lot of coffee meetings.
I got the feeling that a lot of those kind of high-end people were like, they just had a need for themselves. So they were buying like 5 to 10 coffees a day sometimes, is my guess.
God.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Holy moly. So what stage are you guys at right now? And what's going on right now in Sipley?
Okay, so we are about to launch a closed beta on Monday. So over the last week, it's been a flurry of marketing campaigns and outreach on social media and on mailing lists. So we've got 100 spots open for that, of which there are about 40 left. No, probably less than that, 35 left.
Spots in where?
On the closed beta.
Oh, amazing. Okay.
Yeah, so we've been doing pilot testing before that for the last roughly a month to a month and a half, and it's been going really well. The customers really like it, the coffee shops really like it, and overall it just seems to be a really great way to operate a transaction inside of a coffee shop. So I can't wait for Monday. It's going to be a bigger audience and more testing. Yeah.
I thought today was Monday.
Congratulations on getting everyone on board for
Thank
that.
you.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Before we dive too deeply into it, so we have a couple of surprises. So as we all know, Vancouverites love talking about coffee, right? And we're definitely going to talk more about that. But we also need to do the weather report. So take it away.
Coffee and the weather. That's like Vancouver's two main life source of conversation. For the weather this week, everyone, this is my weather forecast post for the people watching live.
Screenshot.
We have rain and more rain. And then we have some sun later in the week. Like, I think Tuesday. Yeah. We have snow?
I heard we were having snow.
Lady just said we have snow. Apparently she knows the
so
weather forecast.
Sade's butchered the job on the weather report this week because she doesn't care.
My brand is to be the worst weather forecaster out there in the world.
She doesn't care because she's leaving. She's going to LA. So,
but I know the weather for LA. It's gonna rain, so I'm cursed.
Good.
It's gonna rain in LA.
I hope it rains the whole time.
I'm okay with that. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, they went through a drought. They need all the rain they can get.
But couldn't they waited a week? I'm trying to catch some sun.
Oh no, she didn't have enough sun. But on top of that, so thank you for the weather report. Just check the weather app on your own time, guys. If you're tuning in for just the weather report, I mean, we got other issues.
Yeah.
So we did have a little bit of an experiment here for you. So before we dive too deeply into it, Sade has run around town picking what we think are some of the best coffees, and now we've put them in these very beautifully labeled Launch Academy mugs. Free plug, launchacademy.ca. That works. So we're gonna do a taste test.
And
All
just
right.
to give you guys a little bit of background, I love coffee, but Tom over here is a coffee expert on all
You might say
levels.
he's like a snob.
Yeah.
Some would say snob.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some may even call me a Vancouver coffee snob. See what I did there? Yeah, that's branding
So it's
right
very
there.
exciting if anyone out there knows about Vancouver Coffee Snob. It's a real big thing here in Vancouver, and Tom actually started it. And when did you reveal it? Because I know that was on the list for a long time.
Like 2 days ago. Because part of the Sipley process is that I'm in the videos, and so it's a lot of people know who I am anyway. But it was like the official reveal just the other day because.
Did you check it through with your agent?
You know what? If anybody wants to represent me as an agent, my expectations are pretty high. But I actually am agent free at the moment.
Well, we'll see how this taste test does,
So
because
it's
maybe
me
that's the end.
against Vancouver's
Coffee snob.
Like, if I win,
We'll just call you Launch Academy snob.
I'm like, that's it, mic drop, walk away.
Hang on,
Become
if
a coffee expert.
if you didn't you go out and get these coffees though? So if you win, it's kind of cheating.
No, it's not cheating. Sam makes them up. I have no idea which one is what. I think
you have some idea.
I have some idea. So no.
So
let's say I have no
should I
idea.
tell you where the coffees are from? Maybe I'll start with that.
No.
No?
Yeah. No. Yeah. We need to know that.
You
together.
need to
Sorry.
know to.
Sorry.
I
Okay.
mean, we could do a complete blind test, and you just label it's like this.
I'm game for it.
This
Yeah.
one's for 4th Avenue. You know, we picked it up on the way here. I mean,
No,
if you want to do
tell
that.
us the options.
Okay, so we have first of all we have Nemesis Coffee, one of your favorites. Shout out to those guys just across the street.
We're
Then
just
we have
Ethiopian. I picked it up.
Okay.
then we have Canada's favorite, all-time classic, Tim Hortons. After that we have my instant coffee over here, which is I think it's from Panama, but via Colombia. I'm not really actually sure because all the words are in Spanish. So
Colombian instant coffee.
so it's
All right.
instant coffee, and then fourth, what I think is personally the best coffee in all of Vancouver, Launch Academy's coffee.
Okay. You know what? My whole time here, I never once tried the coffee. So, all right.
I regret that now.
Yeah.
You would have known. All right.
All right,
So
so
this works. So I'll taste first. I'll drink from one side. You drink from the other.
Okay.
Fair.
Yeah.
and
I've done an enormous amount of coffee tastings where you share the cup. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So take
So
a quick sip.
Do I have to say what I think it is right away?
No, we'll go through first.
I'll forget which mug. Is
Okay,
on
well
top,
we'll
so then
we'll
I
let
got
both
it.
of you guys taste test, and then I'll ask you guys which one you think it is.
So I should preface this really with, yes, I am known as Vancouver Coffee Snob, but I want to say that I'm not a coffee expert compared to some of the real tasters out there, but I am pretty good at coffee shops in general. And so that's just in case I embarrass myself right now.
He's setting a back road because he still has to have a career in coffee versus
I
you.
grew
We
up
just
in
never
Costa
asked you.
Rica, so that's my career in coffee.
So I can already smell that this one's fairly dark roast. It's a pretty
I also smell coffee too, for anyone that's wondering.
It's actually not as bad as it smells. I thought it was going to be a lot heavier.
Could this be Launch Academy's finest?
I think it's Launch Academy.
It's pretty yeah, it's there.
It's there.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm gonna because if I tell you if it is or isn't, then you can't figure it out. But I'm gonna leave this here. But you guys both agree this is the Launch Academy coffee?
Well, I have to try the other ones first.
Okay,
So,
sure.
like-
we'll revisit.
Yeah,
and-
yeah.
You remember
If anything's darker,
All
than
right.
that, it's gonna
I'll
be
try my
difficult
best to
as well.
remember. You guys are. I'm doing all the hard work here. I have to remember all your tallies. Like you couldn't give me a pen or something.
This one's hard.
She's just grimacing. They're all grimacing. Maybe we should have got better coffee.
I'm expecting the Nemesis one to be.
These are budget restraints. I think is what it is.
He's smelling.
This
and
smells
everything.
nice.
I feel like
Yeah.
I should be smelling. I haven't been smelling.
Do you want to re-smell the old one?
That's nice. That's the Ethiopian.
Ethiopian. Ethiopian is
There's fruity stuff
Nemesis,
going on
right?
there. It tastes a bit like berries.
See, I should guess before he guesses because now I'm influenced.
Oh, sorry, we did discuss this, didn't we? I'm not supposed to say anything. That doesn't taste like berries, and it's not the Ethiopian.
Okay. Let's keep it moving.
Okay.
There you go. There's the third cup. So sniff, taste, pass it along. No comments until afterwards.
Okay.
Oh, wow, second guessing.
That is a comment. She made these rules, and I'm just following.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
I'm just gonna line this back up.
It smells pretty dark.
This
Sorry.
this cup is coffee.
Smells like coffee.
I'm just gonna pass you the last cup. All right. Any feedback, comments, or are you guys leaving that till the
Are
end?
we allowed to talk about it now?
I think so.
Wait, no, we're doing the last one.
All right. Are you gonna remember though? I feel like Shada's
I'll
gonna
remember.
forget.
Yeah.
I hate this.
She hates this one.
I hate it. And hate is a strong word.
Yeah, it's really oily.
It's oily. Is that the cup or the coffee?
It could be anything, really. I don't
Am I allowed to swear?
know. Yes, but then we have to put a little.
Yeah. Then I need to
Okay.
put the 17 on or put
That-
a beeper on.
That is beeping disgusting. I gotta try another sip just out of curiosity. Wow. That's the. Okay, we'll wait until we get to discuss this.
All right, so we've had all four, and Shadi's back on her phone, like live streaming or something. We're already live streaming. You don't need to live stream the live stream.
Inception.
And don't forget that people are listening to this audibly. So all they
Right.
see is you giggling, and I have to describe that she has her phone on. And anyway,
Okay,
back
we're
to the
ready to
coffee.
guess.
We're ready to guess. So you had the first one, had the second one. I think you guys liked the second one. You really didn't like this one, and then we didn't have any comments for this one.
Okay.
So you want to go back from the top and then
Yeah.
just maybe just go through your experiences?
So I think the first one is. What did they say? I think the first one is Tim Hortons.
Okay.
Okay. I think the second one is Nemesis.
Okay, the Fruity Pebbles.
Yeah. That one was good. I think the third one is LA.
Third one is
And the
Fourth
last
one is
one is the Café Duran.
LA.
oily-
Duran, man. I love
Oily
that stuff.
Duran Cafe.
So I would disagree with the first one.
Okay.
I think that the first one is Launch Academy. I think the second one, I know the second one's got to be Nemesis,
Yeah,
right? That's
it's good.
that's African coffee. That's written
And
all
I
over
hate
it.
African coffee.
I do smell
Oh.
the fruit.
Yeah.
I've told you this before.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
Any African bean is a no-no. They're too acidic.
Then why did
anyways.
you buy Ethiopian
They
coffee?
only have Ethiopian African beans at Nemesis. Rarely carry South American beans. Anyways, moving on.
Third one is Tim Hortons, I think. I think it just had like a bit more of a horrible astringent taste, like a burn taste to it, more than the
Been
Launch
sitting on the
Academy one.
burner forever.
God, it's actually more that they burn the coffee beans themselves, but probably a combination of
Yeah.
on the burner as well. And then the fourth one, I don't even know if that was coffee. I don't know what the hell that was. That was like, it was slightly.
That's like
You
the
know-
water at the bottom of the coffee machine, the residue water.
It's like the water at the bottom of a hot water tank in an old house that no one's lived in for a really long period of time.
That's gross.
Yeah,
So
that one was your instant one for
Okay,
sure.
Sam,
So
tell
to
us
reveal
who won.
it, Tom was completely correct.
Oh, frick.
I can't make this up. She's trying to make me do more editing work.
I said frick. You're allowed to say frick.
We heard you. So thank you for doing that taste test.
That's
I think
okay.
you've proved your mantle as a Vancouver coffee stop. Shadi's like low-key salty right now.
I'm so salty.
She's just gonna shut down the rest of the show.
Yeah, I'm just gonna give you sass for the rest of it.
Let's kind of focus on what you're salty about. They're both pretty bad coffees,
Yeah,
so
that's
getting them
true.
confused is
I
not.
got the good coffee right.
And
did.
somehow that salt is gonna be forced towards me, although I literally did nothing.
I'm
in
okay
fact,
with that.
In fact, she took my coffee
It's
off
always
my
Sam's
desk.
fault. Always. That's the answer.
But
Okay, let's get back.
I mean,
to
let's
this.
get back on track. So obviously we've tried an arrangement of coffee here. How did you actually get into this?
Quite a few years ago, actually. So I was in Australia. I used to be a Starbucks drinker, and I was all about, like Christmas time, you better believe I'm like holding a, what was it, like gingerbread latte or something like that. And I was in Adelaide, and I wanted to have a cup of coffee, and there was no Starbucks because Australia really doesn't care for Starbucks. And I didn't know
one of the rare
why.
places.
Yeah, right. And I'm walking along the high street, wherever that was in Adelaide, and I stopped in a tiny coffee shop, and I had a latte there. And it was sweet and like caramel tasting and a little bit of nutty taste going on there. And it was like that light bulb moment for me where I realized that, coffee doesn't have to be this like weird burn taste to it that you got to put a load of sugar into. And then I came back, I was just on vacation, and I came back to Vancouver, and I decided I was going to start going to coffee shops. Went to Revolver. I think Kafka's was around at the time. Maybe 49th was open at that time. It may have been their first venue on 4th. I can't even remember. And I wanted to read more about coffee. And there was a couple of like lists out there with top 10s, but it would be, there'd be some like chain stores thrown in there, and it wasn't really trustworthy enough. And I've always liked writing, and I thought, I'll start a blog. I'm a bit of an IT nerd anyway. I know how to get it all set up. And then it just kind of escalated a little bit out of control from there, and now I've got a blog and an app and a ton of like clout in the industry, which is kind of cool. Yeah,
That's amazing.
Was there a specific point when you were like, hey, I could actually do this instead of, I guess you mentioned you were in an IT background.
Yeah.
You're like, IT is, I mean, you always have the hard skills, but was there a point when you're like, hey, let's just do this coffee stuff?
I thought about it a couple of times with Vancouver Coffee Snob, but there's not really any money in blogging, in my opinion, unless you're...
Except for free coffees, you can't live
Free
on
coffees
coffee.
is great, yeah. But the point of the blog for many years is that I was completely anonymous so that I could get the authentic experience. And like over the years, people started to learn who I was. So that doesn't really count anymore, but I still don't like getting free coffee because I find it a bit awkward. And I don't want the expectations from me to write something good about them because they gave me a bag of beans.
Yeah.
But I guess like IT's been great my whole life, and I was looking, rather than to kind of, let's say, get out of IT or do something specifically in coffee, I've always wanted to just be my own boss. And coffee just got a little bit out of control, and I built this big network of people up. And Sipley, as it stands right now, is actually one of many iterations of ideas that I had. I wanted to be the Amazon of coffee for the longest time, where I was working on a company where I would sell bags of coffee, but I would give a bunch of boxes to a coffee roaster, and they would, like Amazon does, you can just kind of post them out, and they take care of all the logistics.
Blue bottle, right?
Like that, but only... so, for example, Pallet, if they were on board, they would take care of bagging and sending for me, and I would just sell it via this marketplace. But Canada is big, and you could make a ton of money sending to Toronto, and as soon as someone in Whitehorse or Yellowknife orders a bag of coffee, you got $50 worth of postage to go. So anyway, that didn't work out. And then Sipley was probably like another 3 different ideas after that, and I did a bunch of testing to see if it would be popular, and it was popular. And then I decided to turn it into a proper company, and that's I've been full time on that since March.
That's terrific.
Wow.
And what would you say? We'll talk a little bit about the coffee scene. I'm sure listeners are also listening, but in terms of the startup scene, you kind of being an entrant and not falling in by mistake, but really you were focused on career, and this Vancouver Coffee Stop started as a hobby. What was the community aspect like?
The coffee or the startup community?
The startup community.
So first off, I started at home locked away in a cupboard in the office in my house. So I didn't get much experience into the startup community. And then I started going to events, and I went to a few events that were more geared towards. It seemed like everybody there was a lawyer or someone with a really big fund, and it felt like there was a bunch of sharks kind of circling around. And what really changed is when I started working in co-working spaces. And so I worked from Work Lab for, I think, 3, maybe even 6 months from there. And then came here with you guys. I know you're not really co-working, but it's, there was desks for me to use here. And that's what opened up. And I know this sounds a bit contrived right now because I'm sitting here with you guys, but that opened up a whole new realm of people to talk to, and the events especially were really, really awesome for networking. And I kind of hate networking at the best of times, but I found, because I was here and the events were here, I was a lot more relaxed. It was my home turf, and and then on from that, like once you start meeting the right people, everybody really wants to help. Everybody, especially when you get involved with coffee as well. Everybody drinks coffee.
It's a good.
Yeah.
You know.
Right.
Way
It's,
in, right.
It's rare in the tech industry that you don't have someone that's extremely caffeinated at some point in their day, right? So I found everybody to be really inclusive and really welcoming, and people seem to like the idea as well, which was encouraging.
You know what's funny is both, well, not all our co-founders, but Ray and Alex both don't drink coffee.
That's right.
Yeah.
They're the exception. They buy tons of coffee because, you know, we have the best coffee in Vancouver. I already plugged that. But they don't drink coffee.
Yeah.
Weirdos.
Yeah, they are kind of strange.
Very strange.
Maybe there's something there. Maybe like you use caffeine to get to a certain stage, but if you really want to be like the CEO of a place like this, you got to cut that stuff out. Actually,
Really?
don't listen to what I'm saying. Go buy Simply subscription.
What are you talking about?
So you don't have to buy just coffee with Simply. You can buy other drinks. There's like tea and juice and stuff.
So talking a little bit more about Simply, like what, you know, as you guys you're on beta, you're about to launch, you know, publicly or whatnot. I actually don't know the plan. Maybe you can tell a little bit about that.
Yeah.
What do you see as because I know we've had some back and forth about this. What do you see as the Vancouver coffee scene like? Like, are they picky? Do they just drink what's closest to them, or?
It's not as refined as I would like it to be.
Really?
And this is just me. I really like coffee, and I like kind of snobby, fancy coffees. And I've paid $20-$30 for a cup of coffee before, but that's an extreme case. We got a ton of Starbucks, we got a ton of blends, we got a ton of other chains, and total respect to chains. They do what they do really well. They don't do the sourcing and the kind of ethical side of coffee as well as I would like it to be done. And also the roasts that they do don't highlight a lot of the different flavors. And so what we find is that the coffee scene in Vancouver is full of people who I feel are ready to take the next step to those kind of fancier coffees where you go, oh wow, it doesn't taste burnt, or it kind of tastes like chocolate or caramel, or in the case of the Ethiopian, I picked out berries. My palate's not as great as some people,
Which
but
you should be drinking so that we don't waste.
okay, definitely.
Just trying to get them all caffeinated.
Yeah, this is like light roast, so it's going to be pretty caffeinated anyway. But that's the kind of coffee I would love people to start drinking, because it's kind of like when you have like a $5 bottle of wine or a cheap beer, and then you realize there's craft wines and beers out there, and you try them and go, oh wow, actually that's kind of interesting. But as far as the actual the coffee drinkers of Vancouver, regardless of what coffee that they drink, everyone's really, really happy and inclusive and friendly, and props each other up when in times of need and that kind of stuff. I'll give an example of something recently happened. This wasn't in Vancouver, it was in Kelowna. And an awesome coffee roaster over there called Canoe Coffee Roasters. Tiny little unit they had for a while, and I think a car. Got this brand new big space, made it look beautiful, painted the walls white, wood everywhere, that kind of stuff. Big launch. A couple of days later, someone broke in, smashed the whole place up, stole a bunch of stuff from them. And the coffee scene in Kelowna kind of highlighted this on social media. The coffee scene in Vancouver saw it, and there was an event held to raise money for them. There was GoFundMe or one of those crowdfunding things. And I think they reached $5,000 in a week, maybe a little bit longer. And that is really indicative of the coffee scene, the coffee culture in Vancouver. Everybody just wants to help everyone else out. And like, that was another reason why I looked at it and I was like, I want in. I want to be a part of that scene, but not someone who's just writing blog articles. I want to tangibly help the coffee scene and prop it up somehow, other than writing a blog.
Yeah.
And here I am.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's amazing. What I like about the coffee scene around the world, and I've noticed it is present here in Vancouver, is the collaboration with art. Like, I find that coffee shops always support local artists.
Yep.
And that's interesting to see. Like, you see it sometimes in some restaurants, but like there's no real other like customer facing industry that is so good and open about supporting local artists.
Yep.
Than coffee shops. You go in there's always local paintings or whatever sculptures. Pretty much anything you see you can buy that's from a local artist.
Yeah.
which is so cool. And I noticed when I went into Nemesis this morning, they had all their windows painted by the local artist.
Nice Nothings. I
yeah,
think his
he
name
is
yeah.
amazing. Like
Yeah.
I followed him on Instagram like since a couple months ago, without knowing that he was doing that with Nemesis. And then when I walked in, I was like, wow, this is amazing. So they just did a collab, and now his art is featured everywhere.
Yeah,
So
they did an
cool.
event for him where he sold T-shirts, and actually I couldn't make it. I was out of town, but it looked like T-shirts and paintings and stuff like that.
Would have loved to have been there. That's so
Yeah.
cool. So that's really cool to have an industry that is so supportive to the arts. Because I mean, coffee is an art. Like when I was watching this dude make, I waited like 10 minutes for this Nemesis Coffee.
Yeah.
And you're just watching, and he's like in another world, just like swirling around his water and coffee and waiting and just staring. And I feel like he's putting like all of his heart and soul just staring at your coffee drip slowly.
And I'm the worst when it comes to that. I'll go into Nemesis and go, oh, so what are you doing there? Oh, what grind is that? Oh, how do you do that? And
And
they're
he's
like,
like,
dude, come on, I'm working
He's
my
focused.
art. Yeah.
you wouldn't think
This is
so,
my
but they're
happy
focused.
place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do this so I don't have to talk to people like you. No, they're
Yeah,
awesome
it's
at Nemesis.
really
They're great at
interesting.
multitasking as
Yeah.
well.
They are.
Cool. So what's next for Sipley?
So, like I mentioned, beta on Monday. So we've got 100 spots open for that, of like 35 or so left. That's where we're going to do a ton more testing, and this is really to kind of make sure there's no bugs, make sure the process works. And we've got 12 coffee shops on it at the moment, which I'll do a plug for: Agro, Ibard, I better get all of them, Olive and Ruby, Carve, The Garden, 2 Kafkas, 4 pallets. I'm missing one.
Launch
Who have I
Academy.
forgotten? Somebody else that I'm going to plug on my social media channels when I
Yeah.
realise who it is and that I've forgotten. That's annoying. Anyway, so we got 12 coffee shops on, and I'm working on a few more for the beta. Once we're sure that there's no bugs, there's no issues, probably full launch around the beginning of March. So that will be where anyone can download the app, anyone can join, and it's free to use until you buy a coffee. So,
Is that cross-platform or?
Yep, yeah, Android and iOS. No web apps or anything like that. That's hopefully for the future, but not many people are using Blackberries or Windows phones these days, so we're capturing most of them.
And I know you were telling us that your development was offshored. Tell us a little bit more about that. Like, what was the process like? Because that's always interesting. I know that's a big decision when you go into a tech startup, and you might be technical yourself, but it's too much to take on. It's like, do I hire someone locally? Do I outsource it?
Yep.
How do I manage these people? So what was your experience like?
It's a big question. So I suppose we should start with what I did to get started on this before I even hired developers. Is I built a very, very basic, I wouldn't even call it an MVP, I would call it a laughably terrible version of the app myself, because obviously I'm a tech, so I can get by with that stuff. And then I did a test where we bought on a bunch of coffee shops and sent people out with this bad app, and worked out whether or not it was going to be a complete train wreck. And as it wasn't, that's when I decided to hire a team. And I interviewed, I don't know, 5 to 10, I can't even remember now, 5 to 10 different development studios in various different countries. Got a referral for a company called Fifth LLC, which is based in Armenia. And so chat to the CEO of that one. They were a lot smaller when I got started with them. I think I was talking to Aram, who's the CEO. I was talking to him the other day, and I feel like they were maybe 15 people when I hired them, and they are, I think they're 70 now.
Amazing.
Oh, wow.
And, so I asked all my, because I'm coming from a tech perspective, I asked nerdy questions for him. You know, where would you host it, and what would happen if this happened, and how would you develop this, and what programming language would you use for that?
Yeah.
And he nailed every single question in a really matter-of-fact, chilled way. And I really liked the guy, liked his team, and decided to hire them. And honestly, best decision I ever made. They are rock stars. They will go the extra mile and then another 5 miles after it. I honestly can't. I can't tell you how great it is to work with a good team like that, especially overseas, because you know they're 12 hours difference from us. So it's tough sometimes because you're really tired or you've just woken up to deal with that kind of time frame. So they'll meet me in the middle of the night if they need to, you know, their night. They'll provide updates in decent ways so that I don't have to chase them down for stuff. Really, really good. So I kind of lucked out there. And as far as if anyone else was to hire an offshore team, first off, talk to me. I'll put you in contact with these guys. They stand behind them 100%.
Yeah, and it's always good to have like a referral to something like that. I know it makes people feel safer.
Yep.
And you just found them through research, or it was
they were referred to me.
Yeah.
Okay. Someone who just came across them because they. One of the great things about their company is they have a 50-50 men-women hiring process, which is really weird for a country like Armenia, I'm sure, where it's not as progressive in some ways as it is in Canada. And it was through someone who's involved in women in tech in Vancouver, and she was working with them on a different project and put me in contact, and that's it.
Cool.
That's awesome.
Awesome story.
We'll have to spread that through our members too, if anyone is looking to do
for
something
sure.
like that.
If they want a
That's
warm
good.
intro to the CEO, I'll
Cool.
happily do that. Yeah, for sure.
Amazing.
So just kind of wrapping things up, what's been tough for the first year as a founder for yourself?
I can think of two major things. One's actually related to I'll talk about this one first because it's related to the development team. So I get a call. I think it was a call from the CEO, or maybe it was the project manager of Fifth. Halfway through the development process, and they said, "Okay, just to let you know, we might be a little bit unavailable for maybe a week or so. Not too sure. The country's going over. There's a revolution happening in the country right now." And so we're not entirely sure what's going to happen. And I'm like,
Oh God.
so like I'm looking through my lean startup, going like, where the revolution chapter? Like it's not in here. And so long story short, it was a completely peaceful revolution. They ousted their prime minister or president or whatever it is, put a new one in, and everybody was happy. And honestly, it sounded like it was just a party going on for a week, and that was what the delay was.
In your mind, you're imagining the worst case scenario, and you're like, why are these guys being so chill about it?
I'm thinking like, okay, well, I mean, first off, I've now got to know these people, and I really like them, and I'm like, well, I don't want civil war or something crazy like that to break out and someone gets hurt. And then I'm thinking from my perspective, like, oh man, I'm like halfway through the development. What do I do? Like, I can't take this on. These guys are way better than me.
Humanitarian first, simply second.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. But I mean, it all worked out great, right? Their country's in a really good place, and so's the app. But it was definitely something I've never experienced in my IT career, and wasn't what I was expecting from this either. But I guess from the other perspective of just the general day-to-day stuff, I knew that startup life, I'd been told it was going to be lonely because I'm a solo founder, and I never realized just how lonely it is. And that sounds really like silly to a lot of people because like there's always in a regular day-to-day job, there's always someone that you can turn around to and ask a question to and that kind of thing. But when it's like you and no one else, and I have my mentors and some amazing people that I can meet up with, but ultimately I can't be sitting with them all day, every day. So it does become quite lonely, and co-working spaces are a great solution to that. But also you just got to kind of get on with it. You just got to deal with that side of things, and then eventually I'll be able to hire some people so that, I'll make the joke that I'll be able to pay for some friends to sit next to me. But I'll be able to eventually hire some people to build a team and so on. But it's surprisingly, it's a surprising thing that happens in a solo founder's life, that you get hit with that loneliness.
Well, I think you've done really well in the way that I know that being a solo founder can get kind of hard to get feedback, like in a consistent way. And I think you've done really well with making sure that you're taking your startup in really baby steps and getting a lot of feedback at every step.
Totally.
Like building that shitty app and going around and just making sure people like the idea of it maybe one day being good before putting in the money and the time to make it good.
And that I would say, if you can do that as a startup founder, or as any real project, if you can do a really, really basic version of it to start with and prove that the demand is out there, it's much better than building something huge. You're spending tens of thousands of dollars on it and then launch into crickets.
Yeah.
So I mentioned I did the shitty app, which I'm going to call it now because you were technically the first person to swear on this. I kind of censored myself there earlier, but
The shittiest swear word.
so it's going to have the E or whatever you said next to the podcast anyway. So I did two things. I did the terrible version of the app, and then I did a marketing campaign. So I did a landing page. I just built an unbounce landing page with 3 plans on it, and I wrote the details of the plans down, and I put a buy now button. Put your email address in, hit the buy now button, and for those of you that hit that buy now button, I'm going to give you a kind of a look behind the curtain here. There was nothing behind that buy now button. It just had a pop-up that said, sorry, due to demand, we've sold out. But there was nothing for me to sell. I was just judging whether or not people would actually pay for it. Because people like using it, but didn't know if anybody wanted to pay for it.
Interesting.
And that way I realized that, oh, wow, holy crap, people do want to pay for it. I better build this thing. And so that was the first mailing list that I sent mails out to a few days ago to see if they were still interested in that. And a bunch of them signed up. So it was a smart way to do it.
How many people clicked on the buy now?
I'd say it was like 100. Yeah. Which is not bad for like a week campaign that we ran, something like that.
Did you just think of that yourself, or was that suggested to you by Unbounce or by advisors?
I probably read it, to be honest.
Yeah.
I don't come up with many ideas myself. I just read and
that's clever.
plagiarize and yeah.
You could have taken the credit on that one.
Great
So
artist
I'm not
steal.
smart enough for that. If I can't come up with my own ideas, I can't come up with things like that. Come on. It may have been my idea. I don't know. Yeah, it was my idea. I'm smart like that. No, I'm pretty sure I would have read something like that. Yeah.
That's awesome. I guess before we run off, I guess we feel obligated to ask you, what's your favorite shop in Vancouver?
Yes.
I get that question all the time. It's really difficult to answer that because I have different favorite shops for different reasons. So like Nemesis is a really good example. They always win the top 10s on my website, which are public votes. They're great. They got great food. They got a Michelin style chef there. They don't have a star, but he's worked in a star kitchen. The food's outrageous. The coffee is always so high end. But if you want to get really nerdy with coffee, you could go to somewhere like Obard, where it's tiny. It's
I've never
tiny.
heard of that. What's it called?
It's Obard, Aubade.
Okay.
It's in Chinatown. It's Pender and Maine or somewhere
Okay.
like that. It's in this massive. It's like the most obscure kind of quirky antique store you've ever seen in your whole life, and he's got a little counter at the front of that, and you sit there and you talk and drink coffee. It's not really somewhere you go and set up with your laptop. So going somewhere like that is just a fascinating place to go and really enjoy that aspect of coffee. But then you've got places like Moving Coffee over in Mount Pleasant, which is where you go for a really, really amazing espresso style drink. Prado is a great example of a community coffee shop where they really embrace the local infrastructure. Kafka's has been around for ages, and that's another really great community one. Palette has amazing roasted coffee. So it's so difficult for me to choose one because I've got different favorites for different things. And anyone that I haven't mentioned there, don't take that as a snub. I love you all in your own individual ways. Probably the best place for me to drink coffee, though, I'm going to make this easy, is at my house because I get given a ton of coffee and I can make it.
Can we get that on the Simply
made me
subscription?
coffee before here, and it's amazing.
So, funnily enough, I played around with what's that? Patreon recently. And so for those of you that don't know what Patreon is, it's kind of like a donation system that if you're creating content on the internet and someone likes your content, they can give you $1 for an article as a contribution towards it, or $5 or $25. Or in my case, I put a $100 option where I will come to your house and make coffee for you, just as a kind of a joke. And one of them was $25. I'll come meet you and you can for a coffee in a coffee shop, and you can watch me take photos and do my Vancouver coffee snob thing. And someone signed up for that.
Oh my god!
So I'm starting to get a little bit concerned about that I'm going to have to spend more time going to make coffee for people. But if anybody does want me to come to their house and make coffee for them, $100. I'll do a special deal for this. I'll do it for $105 if you mention and tag Launch Academy in your posts.
Amazing. Well,
I know
feel
that
like
was
I
a
got
bad
that
deal,
treatment
by
a
the way.
couple times.
And I feel
For
like
free.
that's
This is
kind of
amazing.
it's kind of cheap actually for them to like. What if they live in like Abbotsford or something.
I think I put like the Greater Vancouver. I'm going to go and get rid of this off of Patreon. I'm too worried about advertising this thing.
You gotta
Awesome.
cross borders or something.
I think I said like, I think it was just the Vancouver area. I don't know.
That's hilarious that you even put it out there. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
That's hilarious. Fair enough. So before we leave, do we have any announcements, Shade?
Yes, because producer lady has done this sign a few times already, so we have to wrap things up. A few announcements. We've got some events, and you should totally come join Tom. Keep you connected to the LA community. So we've got February 12th. We have a VR AR Hub Lunch and Learn. So for everyone who still doesn't know about VR AR Hub, we launched a VR AR Hub at Launch Academy. So we now take in VR AR companies in association with the VR AR Association of Vancouver. It's a lot of VR AR. So they're going to be talking about being investor ready as a VR AR company.
Cool.
So February 13th, the day after, so if you guys are up for 2 events in a row, we will have a lunch talk with Boris Wartz. Look him up. I can't start talking about him. He's got so much happening.
He's one of the top investors in Vancouver.
Yeah. So if you want to
to
come ask anything to Boris Wartz, we have an open AMA, Ask Me Anything. That's what it stands for.
Ask him anything. Yeah.
Ask him anything. And last announcement, our next guest will be Jamil Kareem from Innovate BC. So
look for that in 2 weeks'
and
time.
that guy's hilarious. So tune in for that.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
So any last words, Tom?
If you're interested in signing up for the beta, it's open at the moment, so you can go to getsipley.com or look it up on Instagram or whatever. And then feel free to ping me an email via the site or anything like that.
Get on the beta or smash the buy now button.
Yeah.
Amazing. I'm going to get that on right now.
All right.
I
So
can't
with
believe I'm
that,
not
that has been this episode. Thank you, Tom, for joining us.
Thank you for
and
having me.
like we said, in about 2 weeks, we're going to have another episode. So signing off. Any last words, Shade?
Bye.
See ya.